having said that, I promised we were going to get to our West Virginia mom. She says, "Hey Shannon, West Virginia mom here. I had previously talked about my daughter repeating herself after every sentence. We very recently went to the doctor because she has also started screaming randomly and it seems involuntary. Now we're being told it's likely Tourette's.
Oh, wow.
And need to see a neurology because she could have been misdiagnosed with high-functioning autism instead of Tourette's, because Tourette's mimics autism if there are no tics developed yet." And she's got 2 question marks there. "I've never in my life heard this and want some insight as to whether or not Tourette's and autism are that closely related that I missed it. I feel like a failure, honestly, because I wasn't hearing my daughter properly when she said, 'My brain won't let me stop. I'm a robot.' I didn't understand she literally meant it was involuntary. I'm being told that Tourette's also encompasses sensory processing, social pragmatic language, and inhibition issues. Is all of this true? And thanks and much love to you all." And much love to you back. I clearly don't know. How much do you know about Tourette's, Evelyn? And help us out. Save us. I love Eliana Vincent when she does this and she says, save yourself. So Evelyn, save us.
I have experience with Tourette's,
Okay.
both actually internally with our kids, as well as one of my best friends has 3
Okay.
kids with Tourette's.
There we go.
And it's interesting how they do crossover. Don't beat yourself up that it's one versus the other, because either way, both can learn through ABA.
There we go. Yeah.
I mean, ABA can teach anybody, I think, any skill if you really, target it. But for the most part, if, your kids are still young, ABA only helped it, okay? With Tourette's, it's interesting in the sense that there is a lot of involuntary shrieks and tics and different things. And it happens a lot of times with most of the kids I know when anxiety. Anxiety actually increases. So when the kids are a little bit more stressed, their tics actually increase more.
Okay.
So a lot of what you're teaching a Tourette's child is coping skills. And teaching them how to calm themselves. Because when they do calm themselves and they're able to recognize, okay, this is what's going on, you see a lot of their outside non-inhibitory type of behavior, actually it starts, you can't inhibit it.
Okay.
It actually a lot of times comes down. I have to say with Tourette's kids, medication is actually a really great place to start. Getting a really good neurologist that specializes in pediatrics and Tourette's. Mm-hmm. The thing is, with autism and Tourette's, there is a wide range on both ends. It is the spectrum, I feel like. Because I have Tourette's kids who there's a little bit of tics and you can't tell a lot, and then I have my ones that come in and they're, it's constant tics. Initially, it's just like trying to get some control on that. One thing that is similar with a lot of the kids that are on both is they're very concrete thinkers. And so, in the autism world, we always say, they're really black and white thinkers. They don't see the gray. I see that in the Tourette's kids a lot.
Okay.
I see that same similarity. The Tourette's kids, when they're actually focused, get more of the hints of what's going on around them. They can read social cues better. A lot of times, though, if they're ticking a lot, they don't focus and their attention isn't on that.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, so like I had a 13-year-old who's getting bullied, a Tourette's kid, and he was saying somebody else was bullying him, and it turned out it was another ASD kid, but he didn't know to tell his mom that the kid had ASD, even though he knew.
Okay.
And so the mom's saying, this kid's like in my face, da-da-da, and then I just happened to go pick him up with the mom. And I saw him, and immediately from far away, I knew oh, this is a spectrum kid.
Right.
So immediately I asked him, I said, does this kid have autism? And he's like, yes. And I said, do you know what autism is? And he actually could tell me what autism was.
Right.
But I was like, okay, let's talk about it in terms of you.
Right.
And how this child interacts with you. And then he was like, oh. And then he knew, okay, I need to be a little bit more compassionate. He doesn't understand. And then it kind of put the bullying into a different court. Yeah. And because he just wasn't reading it enough, even though he knew this information about this other kid, he didn't put it in context. But when I actually would focus him, he was like, okay, I know what to do now. Like,
Okay.
you know, and it's really interesting. So they don't have that, probably the social deficit. When
And
they're,
it sounds like that they have the perspective taking piece that a lot of times our kids don't have.
yes, they definitely have perspective taking, but you have to stop them to actually think about the perspective taking.
Okay.
So a lot of, and it's the same
Well,
thing with a lot.
that's adults.
Well, and that's the ADHD kids too. A lot
Yeah.
of ADHD kids are like so impulsive and going, and they never stop to read the cue that the other peer is really annoyed by what they're doing. And
Yeah.
then once you stop them, they're like, oh yeah.
But I think that's neurotypical adults in this society. When I see, the thing that makes me the most frustrated now in life is that I go, you know, we spend a lot of time teaching my son who's on the spectrum perspective taking, and I'm frequently standing there talking to somebody who's an adult who doesn't have a disability, like, you know, no disability. Like, I leave room for the fact that maybe there's one that I can't see, but then you ask them and they go, no, I don't identify as being disabled. and they're not taking anybody else's perspective. I
Yeah.
think that's rampant in the world.
Yeah. So with Tourette's, I would say definitely go to the neurologist.
Okay.
Go do a whole full evaluation, because medication actually has helped all the Tourette's kids I've worked with
Yeah.
a lot.
Okay.
And just controlling the tics so that they have time to pay attention to what's going on around them.
Interesting.
A lot of kids with Tourette's, because they have the perspective taking, they actually are really embarrassed by all their tics.
Oh.
And it creates the social avoidance.
Right.
And it looks like maybe they don't understand,
Right.
you know, that social piece. But a lot of it is they're very, you know, because they have that perspective taking.
Yes.
And they know, like, I look weird, or so-and-so's making fun of me, or whatever it
Yes.
is. They know that it's not right. They don't know exactly what it is. So a lot of times I'd say seek the medical field. Go
Okay.
look and talk to a doctor, because medication actually helps so much of the Tourette's things. And then after that, you can see like what deficits are still there and not there. You know, in my world, when people come in, they need an ASD diagnosis to get insurance funding.
Right.
But really, I tell the families, I actually don't really care about the diagnosis that much. I want to look at the child. What are they doing? What can't they do? And I'm going to address the deficits as they
Yes.
come, because overall it is improving quality of life,
Exactly.
you know, in whatever form.
Now, I have a really probably not very intelligent question, but can you have autism and Tourette's?
Well, I'm guessing probably, like in the new diagnosis of autism,
Yeah.
it leaves room for the genetic,
Okay.
the specifier saying if it does come from a genetic disorder or some other disorder. So like when I started this 20 years ago, Rett's, which is another disorder, and
Right.
it was a pervasive development disorder. Nobody knew anything about it, so I'd get Rett's kids who also had autism.
Yeah.
But now they know the genetics behind it. So now you could get ASD with a specifier that it's a genetic, you know, Rett's
Interesting.
diagnosis. So there's a lot of changes, and for funding, you know, that's usually the purposes of the diagnoses overall. But in terms of what you're teaching, it's all the same.
Okay. And for everybody watching, if you have a child with a Tourette's diagnosis, can that qualify you for ABA through your funding source?
I don't think there is any funding for it right now, for ABA.
Well,
I
that's
don't
something to
know.
work
You need
on.
to look at it, but yeah, for those people, those families with Tourette's, you know,
Yeah.
this is something to go into the community and say, hey, we need this help.
We're seeing more and more families getting ABA services with an ADHD
And
diagnosis.
that's just in the last 2 years. There
Yeah.
was actually the research article that came out that said medication and ABA had the same effect on the ADHD kid.
Love
So,
that.
and
And
that
you don't have the side
paved the way.
effects of the medicine when you're doing, okay.
And the thing is, I want to say, like, I always say, let's do the behavioral first before the medication, but there are some diagnoses that the medication
Yes.
just helps a lot.
Yes.
And the thing is, there are families who don't want to try any medication, and actually I would probably be in that camp. But what I've learned over the years is that, you know, if medication could help, just to take the edge off.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to try it, because just because you're using the medication now doesn't mean they're going to be on it forever.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
it just doesn't require. So don't rule one way or another out. Talk to your medical professional.
But I love that you're already at the neurologist and
That's the place to be
we're
first.
sending you a hug.